this lesson is going to begin the rendering portion of the course. And to do that, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new scene. I'm going to create an environment, and I'm going to bring the environment into my into this Maya scene. So I'm going to not save this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cube. Okay, and I'm going to increase the size of that cube quite a bit. And then I'm going to raise this up until the bottom of the cube is even with my my grid. And then I'm going to delete the faces of the cube. I've got object mode. I will click on this object. I'll select it, and I'll reverse my surfaces by going to reverse, and I'm going to call this backdrop. Call it BG Geo. I'm going to grab my cut faces tool, or my cut faces tool. I'm going to use it like the insert edge loop tool by holding down the control key and clicking like so. And now when I hit my 3 and do my smooth preview, I get a nice nice preview, or nice smooth corner that is going to look quite nice in our when we go to render. I'm going to take my movement indicator, and I'm going to press D and X, and I'm going to bring that to my origin, and then I'm going to scale this up. Actually, I'll scale it out that way. I'm going to create a sphere. This is what I'm going to render. But I'm going to grab this background, and I'm going to give this background a Phong material, and I'll call this BG Phong. I'm going to turn the color to white, but this is important. I'm going to turn the cosine power down quite a bit and turn off reflectivity and turn the specular color, bring it down quite a bit. Okay, what that's going to do is that will create, that will make this background really, it's not going to give us a lot of shadows, basic contact shadows and that sort of thing. It's going to make for a very nice light backdrop. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a plane, and I'm going to rotate that plane like so, and I'm going to scale it up like so, and I'm going to move it over and point it so that it's pointing into the scene. And I'm going to give this polyplane 1 division by 1 division, and I'm going to call it diffuse light geo. And I'm going to give it, I'm going to specify, right click, I'm going to click on it to select it, and then I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to go to lights, and I'm going to make it a mental ray object light. Okay, now that object light, this is a very easy thing to use. Move it back a little bit. But you have to remember that this diffuse light is actually, it's diffuse and all, but it decays. And so and this is going to be something that you're going to want to adjust depending upon your distance from your scene. Now, I've found that at this particular distance, 10,000, 1, 2, 3, gives me enough light in the scene. Now, these object lights can be very grainy, and I'm going to show you how to adjust that as you need to. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to create a new camera in my scene, and I'm going to call that camera. Now, it's important that we use you select the transform node on that. I'm going to call it render cam. And I'm going to turn on my resolution gate and my title safe, and I'm going to move in close to my scene to where I'm going to render. Now, hopefully you can remember that the toy plane is going to be somewhere in this part of the grid. So I'll move this out to about right there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my render settings, and I'm going to turn on mental ray, and I'm going to turn off my default light, and I'm going to remember, and this is important, I'm going to remember that I'm set to HD 540. Okay, I'm going to eventually set that to HD 720, but 540 is fine. It'll render a little bit faster and give us a little bit better room in our video. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do something else. Now since I've got RenderCam selected, I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go to RenderCam shape, and I'm going to scroll down to my environment rollout, and I'm going to change my background color like so. Okay. And when I do that, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and render the current frame, and then I'll find out that, in fact, I am rendering from my perspective camera, which is, of course, not what we want. What I want to do instead, and I'm going to hit the escape key to get out of that. What I want to do instead is I want to render a snapshot through my RenderCam. Okay, I always like to render a snapshot first because it's quick and it tells me what I've got. And it tells me where I've got it, more importantly. Now you saw how dark that was rendering. If we hit the render button again, we will see that this will render. I know what I forgot to do. I forgot to turn on, hit escape, and I forgot to go to, I'm going to go to my render settings, and under quality, of course, overall quality, that's something we're going to want to adjust. It's kind of like universal sampling used to be. I'm going to go to scene, and let's see here. Let me go back to common, not common. I've lost it. They've simplified quite a bit of the settings. But oh, here we go. I'm going to go down to Final Gather, Advanced Light Sampling under Indirect Diffuse GI mode. You can play with the Final Gather and the GI prototype, but we'll use Final Gather to start with, and that is going to bring our environment light a little bit more in view. So I'm going to zoom this in a little bit closer, do my snapshot, and then I'll just render part of the frame. There we go. Now you can see how the light, how that environment light is working. You can also see how grainy everything is, and that has to do with the overall quality, but we'll get to that. All right, so what we've done is we've set up our passes. I can drop this back a little bit if I want, and then we'll see that will make our shadows quite a bit darker, or a bit darker, I should say. I can also back off on the intensity of the light overall. Yeah, you can see how that's getting darker. But again, we want to do that when we get to our final, when we bring this environment into the model plane file. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to bring up my outliner, and I've got these three objects. I'm going to take these three objects, and I'm going to delete history, and I'm not going to freeze transformation on my camera, but I am going to freeze transformation on everything else. All right, so I've got clean geometry. I'm going to grab these three, and I'm going to group them. I'm going to rename that group Enviro Group. And I'm going to save my file as, I'm going to call it environment. All right, there we go. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to I'm going to open the 29 begin, and I'm going to go to File, Import, Environment. And I'm going to import. And there's my environment. I'm going to grab my plane geo, and I'm going to move it up until, and I've got to right, I'm going to move it up until the wheels are right even with the geometry. Okay. And so with that, we've got a pretty good start on our rendering environment. So in this lesson, we created a render environment. We imported it into our plane file. In the next lesson, we're going to work on the shader for the plane, and we'll do a little bit of test rendering as well.